Welcome to Fantasy Fanline.
Let's go!
Hello, everybody.
Go!
Welcome back to Fantasy Fanline, the fantasy football call-in show, putting you on the air with industry experts every week. I'm your host, Greg Scalera, here with my hyped out of his mind co-host, Sanchi Value. Dude, how you doing, man? It's the My Guy show. Are you excited? I can't really tell.
We made it. We have college on all day. Thursday night kicks off the year with an amazing game, and I'm so ready, man. I'm hyped. If you couldn't tell.
Big time to be a football fan, whether college or pro. The pro season's coming around the corner fast, and we are here to get you ready for it, whether you're already drafted, whether you're drafting this coming week. I know Labor Day is a big draft day. We're here to give you some hot tips and some plant our flag on some of my guys this year that you might want to take a look at grabbing in your drafts if you still haven't drafted yet. So got a great guest today. Sanchi, dude, thanks for holding it down for me last week while I was in Jamaica. We had good friend of the show, Spencer the Guru, on, and special guest George Cruz, who just killed it. So shout out to both of those guys. Jamaica was great for everybody who asked. Thank you very much. The return trip, not so much. We did get stuck in Canada overnight. We had a layover in Toronto that got canceled. And, we did over the off season, earlier in the summer, we had a pro wrestling mock draft show. We were doing some crossover genre mock drafts. And I said a lot of bad things about Bret Hart on that show. And I feel like he put in some calls to Air Canada, pulled some strings, and was like, yo, this guy coming through, maybe make sure his flight doesn't happen, get him stuck in the hotel overnight. Tommy Donuts chiming in from YouTube. Jamaican me crazy, Greg. Tommy Donuts, first ever caller of Fantasy Fanline. Dude, thanks for tuning in. So, without wasting any further time, we have a lot of things to cover today. We had some mailbag questions come in. We're going to talk my guys. We have a very special guest. Before I bring him on, I will remind everybody you can call into today's show. 618-FANLINE if you have any questions. All callers today get a free sticker in the mail, courtesy of Sanchi Value. As part of me knew that you would have them ready to flash on the screen. They are beautiful. Just shoot us a message with your name and your address, and we will get those in the mail to you as a way of saying thank you for participating in our humble little show here. Sanch, thanks for doing that, man. That's pretty cool.
Of course, man. Gotta slap them on some stop signs, some telephone poles. Put them on your laptop, wherever you feel fit.
Bathroom stalls at concerts.
Yeah, of course.
So for those of you joining us for the first time, Fantasy Fanline features expert guests from the fantasy football industry every week to take your calls and answer your questions live on the air like we're doing today. So you can call in. You could also leave a comment wherever you're watching us live right now, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. Just leave a comment and we will see it and we will address your comments and questions on the air today as Tommy Donuts is blowing up our YouTube right now. So, moving right along, oh my God, I just saw that we had a call come in from Toronto. Somebody is on deck right now. They might be taking issue. Maybe it's Bret Hart. So I'm just going to move us along and bring in our special guest for today, Aaron Larson, staff writer for the Fantasy Footballers, contributor to many other valuable sites. Dude, thanks for coming back on the show this year.
Absolutely. Happy to be back. Had a great time last year. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, I would say you would have been my favorite guest last year if you weren't a Packers fan. I think I'm contractually obligated to have an issue with you on that front as a Bears fan, the only Bears fan in New Jersey. But yeah, man, we had a great time with you last year. Really excited to have you back on and to hear some of your My Guys picks today.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
Before we get into that, let's see who we got on the phone. Presumably Bret Hart. Hey, caller, you are live on Fantasy Fanline if you can hear us. Thanks for calling in. What's your name?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. My name's Danny. How's it going?
What's up, Danny? Thanks for calling in, man.
Yeah, of course, guys. So I got a couple questions here for you. Fantasy basketball is normally my sport, but this year I got first overall pick in my 14-team league. It's a super flex league, so I'm leaning towards Josh Allen, but there's part of me that wants to take an RB because the QBs are just so deep. What are your thoughts?
Aaron, I'm going to kick this one to you first.
Yeah, I was going to jump right away to CMC until you said Superflex, and Superflex are so unpredictable, and I hate drafting at the 101 because if there is that quarterback run, you kind of get left with nothing. So I think I would go with Josh Allen. Yeah, I mean, it's just because there's going to be probably 10, 12, 14 quarterbacks off the board before your next pick.
Yep.
So I think you got to go Allen.
Is this your first time playing Superflex in football?
No, I've played. I think this is my third year now. So technically, I play with my brother-in-law, who's kind of the brains of the operation.
Okay.
But we've been going back and forth on our first pick here. We're leaning towards Allen, so I agree with you guys, but just wanted to double check here.
I asked you that question
a little bit,
Yeah, I asked you that question because the pendulum swing from playing one quarterback to Superflex in terms of quarterback depth is so dramatic. Because the mindset that you drill in your head when you're drafting one quarterback is that quarterbacks are so deep. But all of a sudden, when you play Superflex, especially in a 14-team league, that is dramatically not the case anymore.
Yeah, for
Don't
sure.
Don't overthink it, man.
And then one more.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's going to be Josh Allen. Yeah, for sure. And then another quick question here, boys. So my second pick, I'm often faced with Debo, Mike Evans, and Fournette. And originally I was taking Fournette just because like the RBs like considerably drop off like into the fourth and fifth rounds, right? But I think I'm leaning more towards Debo and Mike Evans just because their ceilings are a little bit higher. But what are your thoughts on that for my second pick?
Before we answer that, what's your scoring format? Is it full PPR, half? Do you know?
It's half.
Okay. Sanchi, do you have a strong opinion on that?
I think I'm leaning Mike Evans, but if you have the first pick, you can grab Evans and Fournette, hopefully, because in Superflex, those guys will fall all the time. Probably even some better players, because if everyone goes crazy on quarterback, which you see a lot in those first two rounds in Superflex. Obviously Debo is a stud, but Mike Evans is a lock for 1,000 yards and at least 8 touchdowns every year. I think he's very safe, especially if you take Josh Allen 1, who's also extremely safe. You just get 2 really safe guys. And if you want to take Fournette after Evans, and I'm not mad at locking up 2 guys on the same team like that because it's a Tom Brady offense. He trusts both those guys tremendously, and it's just fantasy point city if you ask me. I wouldn't be mad at you for going Debo here, but personally, I do like Evans and Fournette on the wrap if those are 2 guys you're high on.
Aaron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I lean towards Evans too. And honestly, I'm not huge on any of these 3 guys, but it's a tough spot at that turn with that ADP. I'm a little worried about Debo this year, just overall with the San Francisco offense. It's going to look so much different. We're getting all this Ayuk hype and with Trey Lance. I love Trey Lance. I don't know where to go with the skill position guys, though. It's been a weird offseason for Tampa Bay, too, so that kind of freaks me out. But like you said, Mike Evans has been Mr. Consistency, and we know they're going to air the ball out. That's one thing we can be pretty confident in. And he has been the most reliable guy there. Godwin starting injured or coming back from the injury, Gronk being gone. Russell Gage has even been hampered for a bit. So
and we'll see what Julio is, but I can't.
I'm a little hyped for that, but it's scary.
I'm hyped too.
Yeah, I think Evans for sure has the safest floor out of those guys. I feel a lot better with him as a wide receiver 1 than Debo, who I would love to steal as a late, a wide receiver 2, and he falls there sometimes. But there's a guy I have to count on to hold down my wide receiver 1 spot. It's probably Evans. Fournette, interesting pick, positional scarcity at running back. But there are some other guys in that same range who I like just as much who are falling around there. If you can get like a Javonte or even like a James Conner around later, like I don't see a huge difference there.
Yeah, the running backs are interesting this year. There's so many young guys and question mark guys. So, the dead zone, I believe in the dead zone, but I feel like the dead zone is smaller this year and that there's a lot of just high upside guys you can kind of throw your darts at later in the draft.
For sure. Hope that helped.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And I heard that Debo is not going to be rushing the ball nearly as much this year. Like he actually claimed that himself. So that definitely hurts his value, of course.
Or a weird I think they put in this contract. Yeah, incentives.
Yeah,
so,
$650K for it. Yeah.
I'll rush the ball this year for $150K. So,
yeah, no kidding. I'll do it for $50K.
I'll do it for $50.
We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for calling.
All right, boys, appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope we hear from you more this year. Be sure to subscribe to the show.
Best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Okay.
There you go. First call of the day. Hopefully he shoots us his message, claims his free sticker. I'm going to bring in a second caller we have in our queue. I don't know if it's Aaron or the stickers, but they're coming out of the woodwork today. Hey, caller, if If you could hear us, welcome to Fantasy Fanline. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Tommy Donuts. I'm calling from
no.
New Jersey.
Tommy Donuts, welcome to the show. I know you're just calling to get your sticker, but what can we help you with while you're here?
I actually got a sticker, and I display it proudly on my laptop.
Thank you.
So that's for you no matter where I go.
All right, man.
First, I want to say, Greg, I know you're a Bears fan, but Aaron, I am a Jets fan, but half my family are Packer fans, so
Nice.
Go Pack Go. I will support you no matter what.
Fantastic.
So,
Is there a point you're getting to here, Tommy?
So my question for Fantasy Fanline is not specifically one player, but is the Denver Bronco hype real this year? Like how when Peyton Manning first went to the Broncos back in 2013, he had an immediate effect on the entire offense. Do you think the same can be said about Russell Wilson going in there? Because I'm hearing a lot of hype about Judy, Sutton, Williams.
Well, I know how Sanj feels about this, so I'm going to kick it to Aaron first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am buying into the hype, and it's a combination of things. Russ Wilson being the biggest piece of that combination, but there's a whole new coaching staff here too that has just a completely different philosophy than the old coaching staff. They got Nathaniel Hackett over from the Packers, and they're going to let Russ do what he wants to do, which is open it up. And those receivers, well, not even just the receivers, all their skill positions, we don't know who's going to emerge, but we know they're at least all physical freaks, right? They have Sutton, Judy, Hamler, all these guys, Okwebanam and Javante and Melvin Gordon. I mean, I don't know what the best guy is going to be. It's probably Russ. Russ is probably the guy we want the most out of this. But so, yeah, I'm buying the hype. And then that division, too, their schedule, the way it's going to play out. Like, there's going to be some shootouts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Russ is the guy that you probably want, especially at his ADP, but all of his weapons are going to eat this year. I know we're talking at least about one or two of them later. Sancho, you want to add anything to that that's not going to spoil anything that's coming down the road in the show?
Yeah, stay tuned for the My Guy segment. But, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I want a piece of this Denver offense. They're going to be one of the best in the league. They're absolutely loaded. Tommy Donuts, if you can take any of these guys, Javante, Judy, Sutton, Russ, even Gordon late, take them, man. This offense is going to roll. They're going to let Russ cook. What they say, let's ride. Let's ride.
Let's ride. Dude, I saw him. I saw Russell Wilson on TV last night at Serena Williams' tennis match while I was sitting in a bar listening to a band, and I stopped my conversation mid-sentence and pointed to the TV and said, let's ride. And everybody was like, what are you talking about? I was not with football fans. But yeah, Tommy, short answer, man, the hype is real. Pretty much top to bottom in that team. You want a piece of it. I thought long and hard about making Javante my guy for today. I ended up not doing it, but I love that he's being drafted kind of at his floor. He's being drafted right around where he finished in his rookie season last year, and it's only going to get better from there, especially with Russell Wilson coming in and with another year under his belt in the NFL. I love that the entire world simultaneously learned how to pronounce Albert Okwegbenam's name this year. Maybe that's a sign of the hype and people starting to pay attention. So good question. I'm buying in despite the hype. It's something that if we're collectively wrong about, we're all going to be wrong together.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do have Russell Wilson in one of my leagues, but I was unfortunate to not get any of the other big names on there. Unfortunately, I was sniped on a few of my picks, but you know what? There's daily fantasy every Sunday, so I might just have to roll with them one time throughout the year.
That's right, Tommy. Way to look on the bright side, and congratulations on your Russell Wilson share. Thanks for calling, man.
Thank you very much. No problem.
Talk to you soon.
Guys.
Later, Donuts.
Oh, my goodness. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and move into our mailbag section a little bit. We'll try to touch on some of these last questions here before we get into the My Guys, the meat of the episode. But I do want to make sure that we cover everybody who was kind enough to take a second, go out of their way to our website, fantasyfanline.com, filled out our mailbag to ask questions because they couldn't join us live today. So Pete in New York has a great question. He wants to know if we could share any draft mistakes we've made this year that we can learn from. Real quick, Sanch, I know you're nearly perfect, but is there anything you did this year that you wish you hadn't done and are taking away a lesson from?
The only thing I wish I did was take Dameon Pierce in the 8th round while I still could. That's pretty much it, man. If you prepare like us and you're confident in your players and you're going to your draft like you're gonna kill it, then why have any regrets? But Damian Pierce, after they cut Mac, that ADP just went crazy. I had a chance to take him in the 8th. I didn't. That's my only regret, but I'm feeling really confident about everything else.
Yeah, he was a guy that I know you had your eye on early, kind of before the hype train took off. So I guess the lesson there is when you're in on a guy, you have a feeling, maybe follow your gut and get in on that before the rest of the world does. Aaron, what do you have to say?
My biggest thing, looking back at a draft I did earlier, this like last weekend, and I was at the 6th slot, and I kind of crumbled under the pressure of that ADP and what you're supposed to pick. So if I look at my rankings, and we don't need to get into the whole why right now, but I'm fading Cooper Kupp a little bit, and I love Stephon Diggs. And at the 1.6, I'm like, oh my God, Cooper Kupp's there. I have to take him. And I couldn't trust my own rankings. I took Cooper Kupp, and I hated myself afterwards. Because I'm just like, I
assume you did not get a shot at Diggs on the way back.
No, he was not there.
You'll be happy with Kupp.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Not trusting myself.
That ties in a little bit with my regret. I talked about this a lot on the show with salary cap drafts, and I still made this mistake a couple days ago. I'm in a league with a really unique auction structure. We do a hybrid. We do the first 6 rounds as a salary cap draft, and then the rest snake, because we love auction drafts, but they take forever. So this was our attempt to kind of mitigate how long they take. And this was a mistake kind of specific to that structure, but I think it also applies to full-length salary cap drafts. I was drinking and acting as the auctioneer, so I have a little bit of an excuse, but I completely lost track of the average that I had left to spend on my remaining roster spots, and I ended up spending, kind of pinching pennies, getting some really great value deals the first few rounds, and I ended up in round 6 with my last pick. I didn't realize it. I had like $50-something still, and I ended up spending it all on Michael Pittman, which I love Michael Pittman. Probably could have got him for half that price and spent a little higher in one of the other positions. But just a reminder, as you're going through a salary cap draft, it's a long night. Just keep an eye on your remaining rounds and how much you have left to spend per round, because it sneaks up on you real quick at the end. And if you're going conservative in the beginning, you'll end up in that situation. So go get your guy regardless of kind of, trying to play the value game and the ADP game, as Aaron said. So that is what I learned a couple days ago. Jim Co. Jr. writes in from Instagram, which team will have the most productive RB2 this season? I love this question. Do either of you have something that jumps out at you? Because I have one.
Yeah, I also have one that jumps right out.
It's Kareem Hunt for me, man.
That's a good one, Sanji. Aaron, thoughts?
Aaron Jones, or not Aaron Jones. He's the running back.
Oh, man, Dylan. He slipped
Dillon.
my mind. He slipped my mind. That's a great one.
A.J. Dillon, for sure.
Yeah, those are 2 really obvious ones, and I had a short list of them, and I figured you guys would mention 1 or 2 of those. If we're looking past guys that are highly drafted already and kind of looking more at handcuff, maybe some standalone range, I'm going to say Darrell Henderson on the Rams, because there have been a lot of questionable vibes coming out on Cam Akers just in terms of his recovery from the injury, and not just that, but also his intended usage this year in the Rams offense. There's a lot of talk about split backfield, kind of 1A, 1B between those 2 players. And if it's going to be closer in workload than we thought, then we're drafting those 2 guys way too far apart in ADP right now. So Henderson is an interesting late stash. Aaron, you have something you want to add to that?
God, I just had one in mind. What are they? Okay. So yeah, I think James Robinson might be a really good value right now, because he's had a longer recovery from compared to Akers when Akers came back last year in the playoffs. So he is. I don't know if he's going to be full speed, but everything we hear from the Jaguars camp is that, well, Robinson is their preferred back, their number 1 guy, and ETN's going to be kind of the jack of all trades. So I think he's going way later than he should be right now.
Well, speaking of the Jaguars offense, Herbs91 writes in from Instagram, will Trevor Lawrence be a viable fantasy option this year? And if we like Robinson and we like ETN, are we expecting Lawrence to take a step forward now that he's no longer under the curse of Urban Meyer? Sanj.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrence is a stud. I know last year didn't show that too much, but as you said, Urban Meyer, you saw the weapons he had. Unfortunately, ETN went down early. But he's looked pretty promising in the preseason, which you take with a grain of salt. But, he's one of the biggest prospects at the quarterback position since Andrew Luck. Like, he needs to take that step, and I think he will. Christian Kirk got the bag. They added a few other weapons around him, and the coaching staff is like 100 times better with Peterson over Meyer. I think Lawrence is that guy. He has the juice. he has the stuff, and he's definitely worth a late round flyer on quarterback.
Aaron, you agree?
Yeah, I echo that. With the coaching staff, I was going to say Urban Meyer was probably the worst possible candidate for Trevor Lawrence as a rookie, and you can't really find a much better coach than Doug Peterson. He's got a great history, Super Bowl winning coach, and I think it's just going to be a whole. So is he going to be a viable fantasy quarterback? I think he'll have weeks. I don't think he's going to be a guy you ever feel super confident in, but I think he's a guy you'll look at matchups in streaming, and he's going to some DFS weeks. I think he will be, in that just outside of the QB1 range overall for the year, but I think he'll be in that range a couple of weeks of the year.
That's my expectation. I think that said, I think there's a ceiling where he is talked about as one of those potential top 12 picks going into next season based on this year.
He could rush the ball in 8 times to the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, people don't look at him and think of him as a mobile guy, but he was in college. His production was off the charts. He's, one of the most highly rated quarterback prospects since Andrew Luck, probably the highest rated. And, people want to throw that out after 1 year, but you got to give more weight to the coaching staff, the philosophy change, the team mindset change, going from a guy like an Urban Meyer to a Doug Peterson. I think it's going to make a bigger difference than a lot of people are expecting coming into the season. I think the Jaguars are going to turn a lot of heads. So I would say yes, I would be okay if I punted the position going in with him as my week 1 starter, with the understanding that I'm probably going to be streaming a lot.
And you know what? He's not going to get benched.
That is definitely true. Yeah. I mean, he's not going
Giants. Week
he's
7.
not going too far ahead of like the Marcus Mariotas of the world, who probably aren't going to make it through the season. So much more upside in Trevor Lawrence. Love the question. Don't think enough people are asking it, to be honest.
Play him against the Giants.
Speaking of questions that I haven't really seen anybody else ask, Joey Ruisi wants to know if Jamar Chase is the real deal. He wrote in on Instagram to ask me that this morning, and I squinted really hard at this question. I was like, Joey, are you messing with us? But then I was like, there have been so many wide receivers to come out and start hot and then disappear and never, kind of approach the ceiling that they hit in their first or second year. So it's a valid question. Aaron, what do you think of Jamar Chase? Should he be drafted as highly as he is this year?
Yeah, he is the real deal. There was a time this offseason where I was considering putting him as my top receiver on the board. The T. Higgins being there kind of backed me off of that a little bit, but he is still first round pick for me. Going back, I looked this up just a little bit ago. So rookie wide receivers, the fantasy production, the only guy that had a better rookie season fantasy wise ever was Randy Moss. So the list goes Randy Moss, Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham, Anquan Bolden, Justin Jefferson, Michael Thomas. I mean, that list is pretty impressive. So I think he is the real deal.
Sanchi, I know your answer, but let us know anyway.
Hey, Joey, love you, man. Just go on YouTube right now, type in Jamar Chase highlights, watch it, and then ask yourself the same question. The guy's a stud. Draft him where you can.
Yeah, he passes the eye test. His workout metrics, even coming into the league, were ridiculous. And
the crazy thing is he is a deep threat, and his run after the catch ability is like top tier. He does both.
Yeah. The only viable knock that I could see against him returning as he's the consensus wide receiver 3 right now, and the only way that doesn't hit is if T. Higgins is a bigger part of this offense. And I mean, he was not forgotten last year, T. Higgins, by any mean, but I could see it being a closer 50-50 split. That being said, I still don't think, even in that scenario, there's a world where Jamar Chase doesn't finish as still like a top 8 guy. So
I've seen the bold take going around Twitter a little bit that T. Higgins could outscore Chase, and there's a world that happens, but I don't think it's
I'm not putting my money on that. Yeah, my money's not on that.
I would be less surprised if he out targets Chase, but still doesn't outscore Chase, because I think Jamar Chase is going to get the higher value targets and put up more touchdowns. So I'm actually in a 8-team league for the first time in my life this year, and we are halfway through a slow draft, and I started from the 7 position. I started with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, because I'll never get another chance to do that in my life. So
it's amazing.
I was like, why not? One in Rome. So there you go. Speaking of Jamar Chase, there was another kind of related question. Perry from Florida. Who will be this year's we shouldn't have worried so much about Jamar Chase's preseason narrative regret? For those of you who don't remember last year, people were fading Jamar Chase coming into the season because of some weird vibes coming out of training camp, some storylines about him struggling with drops and not making the transition to the NFL, even though he was really highly drafted. Aaron, what do you make of this question, and who comes to mind?
So there's two answers that came to mind. I'm going to give one real quick that I think is the most obvious one, but I want to spend a little more time on the next. So the obvious one I think is Treylon Burks, because it's been nothing but negativity out of Tennessee. This is a super talented first round pick. I know a little report came out yesterday maybe that said there is a plan for him to be involved. So I think we're thinking too hard on Treylon. But the one I want to speak a little more to, it's not a rookie, but it's the Tyreek Hill isn't going to be good because Tua can't throw the deep ball. And then that clip went viral of the 55-yard pass that was completed, but it wasn't quite far enough. It wasn't a 70-yard pass. So Tua must not be very good. I think it's going to be a great offense in Miami. I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like. And I think Tyreek Hill he's fallen too far. I think he's going to be the guy that we look back and like, oh, yeah, Tyreek Hill is still really good, and Tua can throw a football competently.
I love that answer. That's going to be one of those that if the community is wrong on it and fading Tyreek, it's going to be one of those really obvious, like, what were we thinking? We got too cute with it. Thank you for bringing up Treylon Burks, because that was my answer as well. So you were saving us some time there. And I don't have to mention him again. Sanchi, who came to mind for you on this question?
And my guys aren't rookies either, but I think J.K. Dobbins is getting a lot of disrespect right now. You know, he's that video with him limping and then him tweeting, "I'm not limping," with the,
walking with style.
Yeah, he's been getting disrespected all off season. And for the price you're getting him at, it's the Ravens are going to run the ball down your throat with Lamar, Mike Davis, Kenyon Drake. Nah, man. J.K. Dobbins down the stretch on that run-first Baltimore offense is going to be cash money, and I think it could win people some leagues, and I think he's getting a little disrespected. And I have another one that's not a rookie, and it hurts me to say this, but Antonio Gibson.
He was on my list, too. He was
Antonio
on my list.
Gibson. Like, no one feels confident making that draft pick, but the tragedy with Robinson, I still think he'll be back. We're all rooting for him. It's great that he's back already. It's great news, but everyone was fading Gibson, man. I think I got him 7.9 in a sharp 12-man league as my flex. And, I hate to draft that guy, but we know what he can do. And I think his role is pretty safe now with the unfortunate news with Robinson. And I just think, those two guys, no one, they're not sexy picks, J.K. Dobbins and Gibson, but if you could get them as a 2 or a flex, I think that's really nice. And you should keep those guys on your radar, even though you don't really want to take them too much. Because I didn't want to take Gibson at all, but I couldn't pass on him there.
His ADP for sure has not caught up yet from the Brian Robinson news. It's such a big part of the reason the community was fading Gibson was because of the impending emergence of Brian Robinson and just the move taken by the team to go get a potential replacement, which I think said a lot about the way that they felt about Antonio Gibson coming into this season. And then to see Brian Robinson step up and seize that opportunity, I was done with Gibson. Taking Brian Robinson out of the picture really makes him more necessary than I think the team wanted Gibson to be this year. Whether they wanted it or not, they got him, and he's going to be relevant. So getting him in the 7th is just ridiculous. Great question. Great answers. I'm going to take a second before we move on to my guys to shout out a comment here coming in from Josh Green on YouTube. He is a coworker of mine, and he appears to be placing a side bet for our fantasy league together. He says we play each other week 6. If I win, oh no. You dress like Pat McAfee and cut a 30-second promo hyping Aaron's channel. Oh, Aaron, you're welcome. If I win, I guess he dresses as a wrestler of my choice and cut a promo of my choice. Okay, so I accept that bet, and if I win, I'll think about the wrestler. But Josh, I'm also going to have you cut a promo that promotes Aaron's channel as well. Because no matter what here, Aaron Larson should win and get some more eyeballs on his Twitter. We didn't really get to spend a minute at the top of the show, Aaron, to talk about all the great work that you do for the fantasy footballers. You want to take a second, just talk about the work you do for them over there on their website as a writer, some of your recent articles. Let us know what you're up to, man.
Yeah, definitely. I've been writing for the Ballers for a while now. It's pretty fun. We're just wrapping up the off season now. So the off season is always fun because we do a variety of different things. Did some fantasy court articles, looked at some different changes in offenses over the year, doing some fun strategic articles that have been coming out, and one more I think that will come out talking about, you don't win your league at the draft, so how do you win it after the draft? So I love doing those strategy articles in the off season. Once the season,
I loved your late round strategy
Yeah, that was
article
a
a
fun
couple
one.
weeks ago. It's so good, man. I mean, I don't want to give away the farm. I wrote down some notes on some things that I think are probably worth mentioning from that article. Because I did draft the Browns defense based on reading that article because of the shout out to their favorable schedule over the first 4 weeks of the season.
yeah,
But it's a really good article that makes the case for the upside of getting depth at the wide receiver, running back positions, and which one of those guys you should be targeting late rather than like a tight end, and why, and when it's situationally wise to draft a second quarterback when you shouldn't be doing that. It's just a very situationally detailed article. Because there are so many blanket statements out there, like draft one quarterback, draft one tight end, do this, do that. But there's really not too many articles that say, okay, if you start this way, think about the second half of your draft this way. And I feel like there needs to be more of that. That's why we have
Yeah.
this show, is to talk about situation.
that's something that it's a nuance, right? And that's JJ Zacharyson, really, big time guy, but he talks about that all the time. I
Yeah.
love listening to him because he's like, well, there is no black and white. Like there needs to be context, there needs to be nuance to these things. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that article up.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's some more life hacks in there that I won't give away. If you really want to read them, go to the Fantasy Footballers website and check out Aaron's articles. So without further ado, gents, I think I'm going to go ahead and move us into the My Guys portion of our show. For anyone not familiar with the concept, My Guys is a group of couple of players that we're each going to pick that we feel confident planting our flags on, that we're trying to get as many places as we can this year because we feel like they're great value with great upside and a good safe floor. Sanchi, why don't you start us out, man? Who is your first My Guy that you want to share with the class today? I'm excited.
He's the RB8. He's the 11th overall. He goes by the name of DeAndre Swift.
Oh my goodness.
All right, here's a nice stat I saw. The last 9 RB1s were all 25 years old or younger. Important guys that make that list: JT, Najee, Barkley, Javante, DeAndre Swift. Lions have one of the best run blocking O-lines in the league. On paper, that is. He was on the way to finish top 5 at the position last year before he got unfortunately injured. I believe he's going to be an easy top 5 running back this year. I think Detroit's on the uprise, and they're going to be a solid team. The dude is a stud, and you should have a smile on your face when you take him. I don't need to say too much about him. The talent is just pretty damn crazy, and I'm eyeing Swift on that turn all day.
Sanch, I think you've been watching too much Hard Knocks. That being said, I still think you're correct. I love Swift this year.
You knew I loved him before Hard Knocks. You knew I did.
No, sky's the limit for him, man, especially if that offense takes a step forward, which I think it will. Aaron, do you have any reaction to that? And if not, go ahead and share your first pick with us here.
I've got a little reaction. Swift is a guy that I can't figure out how I feel about him. I love him one day, and then I get scared of him the next day. It's just the wildest thing.
Now, is that concern due to the offense, the potential capped upside on scoring opportunities?
A little bit. The Jamal Williams stealing just enough work. I don't think he's going to be. I'm not drafting Jamal Williams anywhere, but just enough work to keep him outside of that elite territory. So, but again, the next day, I'm like, what am I thinking? Jamal Williams is Jamal Williams, and DeAndre Swift is DeAndre Swift.
I've had that same back and forth because you hear things about Jamal Williams in the offseason from the team, and then you're like, well, how much of that is just because he's a great locker room guy and he's a really great leader and a great veteran, and you hear him talk and you're like, no wonder everybody loves him. But is that going to translate to the field? I don't know.
Yeah, but I'll get to my guy. I'm going to start with a wide receiver who has, in his every full season or near full season that he's played, he's been a top 24 receiver. He is getting a major quarterback upgrade this year, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's getting hyped up a little bit the last few weeks maybe, but for the most part, he's been so left for dead that where he's climbing up from still isn't high enough. Looking at the Fantasy Pros ADP, he's going as wide receiver 32. I think that's just wild.
That's nuts.
He's playing with Patrick Mahomes. So the last time that Juju played a full season, and he played 16 games in 2020, he was the wide receiver 18 and caught 9 touchdowns from the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger. He's had some bad injury luck last season in the season 2019, but 2018, that really huge breakout season, he was playing alongside Antonio Brown, who was an alpha player. Now, Kelsey's not the same type of player as Antonio Brown, but he is an alpha player, so he can play right alongside with him, with Patrick Mahomes. I think he could see 160, 170 targets this season in that offense. Double-digit touchdowns are on the table. I've got him everywhere.
I love
Love
that,
it.
Aaron.
Not a lot of guys in that range with that amount of upside. Little peek behind the curtain. Sanch was also going to take Juju. So I'll give you an opportunity if you want to add any color commentary to that statement, Sanchi. Anything you want to bring to the table and back us up here?
Just peep my Twitter, man. There's 3 receivers I wasn't leaving a draft without, and he is one of them. Everything Aaron said was money, on point. He has Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback he's ever had. Kelsey is there to get a lot of attention, and that offense is going to throw. We know this. If Juju stays healthy the full year, like, he's going to smash that ADP very easily.
And I'm
Can't
not
argue
buying
that.
this MVS could be the number one or that
No.
Sky
Me
Moore
neither.
is overtaking. I mean, they're nice players, but I can't see them being.
I like Sky Moore, but if Juju's healthy and on the field, I'm taking Juju 10 out of 10 times. Come on. Easy.
Yeah, and obviously the reason that Juju's not being taken, closer to his ceiling is because there's a world where it's a wide receiver by committee, right? Where he just spreads the ball around and nobody is a one-to-one replacement for Tyreek Hill. I don't know if anyone on earth is a one-to-one replacement for Tyreek Hill, but if there's going to be, I think, one guy to fill, something close to that target share that Tyreek was getting, it's got to be Juju.
I think that offense is going to look a lot different too, but in a good way. I think Andy Reid, if you're going to trust one guy to figure out an offense.
He's always been able to look at the pieces that he has and build something substantial with those pieces as a foundation rather than trying to force a square peg into a round hole. So I trust in Andy Reid to get it done. So before I share my guy, just a reminder, our phone line is open, 618 Fanline. At any point, anybody wants to call in, ask us some questions, let us know what you think of our my guys. Let Aaron know why you hate the Packers as much as I do. Feel free to call in anytime during the show. You will get a free sticker. You get 2 stickers if you do that last part and talk bad about the Packers. My guy at wide receiver, not a surprise for anybody who's drafted with me this season, because I think I have him in every league, is Michael Pittman. And before you fast forward through this part, because everyone's talking about him this offseason, he is not an unpopular breakout name. I still don't think he's being viewed in the correct tier of wide receiver. He finished wide receiver 15 last year with 88 catches, just over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns on 129 targets. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 12. So he's got a 3-spot bump from wide receiver 15, and I don't think it's big enough. Colts obviously got a quarterback upgrade this season with Matt Ryan. And the Colts have 150 vacated targets between Zach Pascal, Jack Doyle, and T.Y. Hilton. So better quarterback, more targets to go around. He's competing with rookie Alec Pierce and Paris Campbell if he ever sees the field. I think Pittman's going to easily, if I had to bet the house on one stat this year, he's going to pass 140 targets, probably closer to 150, 160. I mean, that's always been Matt Ryan's MO, right? When he's had a stud wide receiver, he has featured him. In 2020, Calvin Ridley, 143 targets. 2019, and yes, I am going to read each one of these. Julio, 157. Year before that, Julio, 170, 148, 203 in 2015, 163 in 2014. So when he has a wide receiver, that wide receiver is the dude. And I think that's going to be the case with Pittman this year. And he's not just a product of opportunity and an increased target share. The guy is 6'4" with a 94th percentile speed score and a 90th percentile catch radius. Last year, he was number 3 in total route wins, number 4 in route win rate, number 8 in win rate versus man coverage. I mean, the guy's a stud. And, it's pretty simple math. A bump in targets, a bump in target quality. His target quality last year was 58th in the league, catching passes from Carson Wentz, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody who watched those games. But if you're just looking at the stat score, you're not going to see that. Calvin Ridley's last full healthy season with Matt Ryan, his target quality rating was 18 compared to 58 last year from Carson Wentz. So, like I said, increase in targets, better target quality, a guy who's a stud, wins so many routes. I think he's got top 5 upside. I'm taking him ahead of Tyreek Hill, probably Mike Evans, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen. All those guys are ahead of him in ADP. That might not be a consensus opinion, but that's where I'm at on Michael Pittman. What do you guys think? Is that too bullish?
We talked about Lawrence late. How do you feel about grabbing Matt Ryan late for that cheap stack? Are you in on that?
I actually love Matt Ryan late, and I gave him a lot of thought of making him my guy because I've talked so much about Michael Pittman this offseason. I
Matty Ice.
couldn't quite do that. I mean, just because there's a world where Michael Pittman is still a stud and Matt Ryan is still like a QB 17, 18 kind of finish, because we've seen that. But we've also seen him, as recently as 2018 finishes the quarterback 2 overall behind a much worse offensive line than he's going to be playing behind in Indianapolis. So if I really punt the position, I feel pretty good about going in with Matt Ryan and just seeing what happens, seeing what that Colts offense looks like. And it's not going to be a dumpster fire, but if Matt Ryan isn't producing enough to carry my team, just cut him, week 2, go find somebody who can carry me. I love him as a quarterback too. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, we're all pretty much in agreement here on Pittman. I've got him inside my top 10 at wide receiver. I think he's one of those guys that, people are buying into him, but there's still just enough hesitancy that maybe they're not buying into enough because we haven't seen it. But he's the guy that you have to take that leap of faith that he's going to make that jump. With all these younger, and he's still young, but there used to be a thing where it was the third year breakout. And I think he's going to be that third year just explosion. Yep. Everything you said about Matt Ryan and targeting number ones. And Frank Reich has come out. I think Frank Reich is one of those guys that, as much as you can for an NFL coach, he kind of is a straight shooter when he's talking to the media. And he says, we can't be a ground and pound team. That's not how the NFL, it's not how the best teams play. Mm-hmm. So, when you're saying however many targets he could get, what's the ceiling for his targets? 180, 190?
180,
Yeah, that's a legitimate possibility. So,
and for the coaching staff to come out and say that when you have one of the best running backs in the league, Jonathan Taylor, because that was my concern, right? Is that they just funnel the offense through Jonathan Taylor and the passing game doesn't take a step forward. But I don't see that happening with those comments and with them bringing in such a prolific yardage guy and Matt Ryan. I mean, he's never under 4,000 yards. He's usually closer to 5K. So I like it. I think the sky's the limit for that passing game. Well, not the whole passing game, specifically Michael Pittman, because I don't.
Those other guys will mix in, but they're never going to be people you can trust.
Yeah, you can
Alec
take
Pierce season.
Late dart throw at Alec Pierce, but he's not going to take any meaningful targets away from Michael
Pittman. No way.
So Sanchi, let's circle back around and talk about your second my guy here.
All right, you guys want receivers, so I'm going to go with one as well. He's going in the 4th, 5th round in high stakes leagues, and his ADP on Fantasy Pros does not reflect that, and you need to take advantage of that. It's Gabriel Davis, wide receiver 23, 62nd overall. I went on a sports. I love it. I don't love it because Diggs is a stud, but he could get close, and let me explain why. I went on.
And for those of you listening on podcasts, I just threw up a comment from YouTube. Josh Green chiming in with a hot take: Gabe Davis outscores Diggs in standard leagues.
Very hot take. Very hot take, but it can happen. Not saying it will, but it can. I went on a sports book and I looked at the odds for most receiving touchdowns this year. It goes Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tay Adams, Diggs at 7, T. Higgins is 8, CeeDee Lamb 9, Mark Andrews 10. Who's at 11? Gabe Davis, man. That's only 4 spots. That's only 4 spots after Diggs, who's going in the 1st round, early 2nd. Vegas usually always knows, and he's showing them some respect. And I recommend you show some respect towards Gabe Davis, because in the 6th round, it's cash money. In the 7th round, it's highway robbery. And I recommend taking him in the 5th, laughing straight to the bank with that. I think that offense could break records. You saw the trust Allen has with Gabe Davis in that playoff game. Everyone said it was a fluke. First preseason game, Allen breaks 2 tackles, chucks one up. Who is it? Gabe Davis. I read that their Diggs and Davis might be on the field together 90% of the snaps. Sign me up, man. If you can get Gabe Davis as a 2-3 flex, is just a steal. But I'm telling you, this guy's gonna go off. You got to get him.
That's another one that nobody is hearing on the show for the first time, but certainly a vote of confidence if you're not sure whether you want to. I know some people like to zig when everybody else is, zagging on potential breakout players, but this is one that you should make sure that you leave your draft with. The Bills, going to be one of the best passing games in the league this year, if not the best. And I think one of the teams with the highest rate of vacated targets coming over from last year. Aaron,
no Sanders.
No Sanders.
They lost McKenzie, he doesn't scare me enough to fade Gabe Davis. I want him everywhere. I do have him everywhere. 90% of the league. Sorry to cut you off.
No, Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley both gone. I think they combined for upwards of almost 200 targets last year. So, Aaron, any takeaways on the Gabe Davis hype train here?
Oh, I'm all aboard it, man. Back in
Choo choo, baby.
Yeah, I think it was back in June. I got it up right now because I was looking. Yeah, end of June I wrote. So we do an article series every summer with the Ballers, and it's the path to a wide receiver one season. And I wrote up Gabe Davis and some of these things, man. He fantasy points per reception since he entered the league. The only person with more is Jamar Chase, 3.1 fantasy points per reception. His yards per reception, fourth highest since he entered the league. I mean, he's just hasn't had that full opportunity, which, like you guys are talking about, he's going to get that this year.
Oh yeah.
There's definitely, again, the article's out there, but there is a path where he is a top 12 receiver this year. It's not that hard to see it.
Billy Kennedy on YouTube grabbed Gabe Davis at the 603 in a 12-man PPR league off of Sanchi's recommendation. Billy, congratulations on that pick.
I love that, man.
If we turn out to be wrong, we are at Fantasy Fanline on Twitter. Let us know. Sanchi is at Sanchi Value. Aaron at AA Larson. You know where to find us. Please follow us and let us know how that pick goes later this year. Aaron, let's get into it, man. Who's your next My Guy?
All right, the next one is it's down the board a little bit further, and it's the guy that he's been very forgotten. He was hurt all of last year. I'm going with a tight end, and I'm going with Robert Tonyan. If we rewind 2 years ago, he finished as the tight end 3 overall, and it was on crazy touchdown efficiency. I get that, but if you're going to have a guy catching touchdowns, having Aaron Rodgers throw them is not a bad thing to have, especially when Davante Adams is gone. He's been recovering. He just recently got back to the full practice participation. And this is a quote from Aaron Rodgers. I think this was 2 days ago. He says, "Bobby being out there is a difference maker," referring to Tanyan's recent return to 11 on 11. He just instinctually has a different feel. And then the report goes on to talk about how Tanyan caught 3 touchdowns in that practice session. So Rodgers is another one of those guys. He's a weird guy, but when he hypes up a player and he likes somebody, that's a good sign for that player. Now, we've seen the chemistry in the past, and there's so many vacated targets and touchdowns from Davante Adams being gone. Everybody wants to know, is it Romeo Doubs? Is it Christian Watson? Is it Alan Lazard? Maybe Robert Tonyan catches 10, 12 touchdowns this season, and you can get him for absolutely free at the end of your draft.
Look, Aaron Rodgers is a douchebag and a lizard person, but he is very honest and he throws a lot of touchdowns. And if he is telling us that Robert Tonyan is going to catch a lot of touchdowns this year, he's probably right. Davante Adams vacated like 300 touchdowns from that offense last year, single-handedly. I think Robert Tonyan is as good a bet as anybody on that team to catch the majority of them. Sanch, I don't think we've even brought up Tonyan on this show yet, which is why we have guys like Aaron Larson coming in and opening our minds.
First of all, Rodgers found himself. He went on a lot of journeys, found himself. He's feeling great about himself. But the fact of the matter is, if you have Aaron Rodgers' trust, he's going to give you the rock. Robert Tonyan's got that trust, as Aaron said, and for a late round free draft pick in the tight end spot, if you punt the position, I love that pick, Aaron.
Aaron Rodgers found himself without a wide receiver 1 this year, is what he found. So I like it, man. Somebody's got to catch passes there. I know a lot of people are pushing their chips in on Aaron Jones as the guy who's going to take a lot of those targets, but I think once they get around the red zone, he's going to be looking at Lazard and he's going to be looking at Tonyan. And Tonyan is basically free right now. So love it. So I'm going to move on to my next pick. Speaking of pass catching running backs, I'm not going with Aaron Jones, but I am going with Kareem Hunt, which might be a surprise because he's not a guy I talk about a lot. But when I really sat down to look at how I felt about these players versus where they're going right now, the disparity between the way that I feel about Kareem Hunt as a player, especially as a fantasy football player, and how he's being valued right now in ADP, was probably the biggest thing that stood out to me from maybe the entire field of players, certainly the entire field of running backs. He's still only 27, which is a little surprising to me because it feels like he's been around forever and succeeding forever. Last year, he was the 6th. He finished. What am I looking at here? I have so many 6s on this because he was top 6 in so many categories. I feel like the community perceives his upside as capped with Nick Chubb on the field, but he was a top 6 RB in full PPR leagues last year with Chubb on the field, and Chubb was the RB12 over that period of time. Kareem Hunt, got hurt in week 6 last year, and then the rest of the year was kind of a wash. But even before that, in 2020, he was a top 10 running back for the entire season with Nick Chubb on the field. He played a couple more games than Nick Chubb did, but that's 2 years of success in the top 12 in points per game. And, this is really a full PPR recommendation. So this is a guy who, you kind of take that hero RB approach. You start with a stud in the first round. You smash wide receiver rounds 2 through 6, maybe even 7, and you're looking like, who can I get to plug into that running back 2 spot? Kareem Hunt is sitting there for you right now. He is going running back 34 in PPR right now, which is insane to me for a guy who was, on pace for a top 6 overall season early in the year last year and top 10 the year before that. I'm not really afraid of Jacoby Brissett coming in. I don't think he's going to be that much worse than Baker was. Baker led them to the 20th overall in points scored last year. So there's not a lot of room to go down. They still have the number 2 offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. I think he's going to get plenty of attempts to run the ball with a great defense. And Jacoby Brissett ranked number 26 in air yards per attempt last season. So I think he's going to catch a lot of underneath passes from Brissett. That's just the kind of player he is. He's still really efficient at age 27. He was the 6th ranked yards after contact per attempt last year, 6th ranked yards per route run, which is a really sticky metric. And he commanded a 26% target rate, and he was number 6 in fantasy points per opportunity last year. So all the efficiency metrics are still there. That's way too many top 5, top 6, top 10 numbers for him to be drafted running back 30-something right now in full PPR. It just seemed like a really ridiculous value, and I think people are just afraid of the Browns narrative, afraid of the offense with Brissett, afraid of Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has never really been an issue for him before, nor has mediocre quarterback play. So I don't know where the fear is really with Kareem Hunt at that draft value. I don't get it. Sanchi?
I said it before, I'll say it again. Pass catching running backs are fantasy gold, man. And I think he's game script proof. If they're he's going to be on the field to start the game. If they're down, they'll be throwing more. I think he'll be more valuable, and I could see the Browns being down in a lot of games. And Kareem Hunt's going to be on the field. He's going to catch a lot of passes. They trust him. They took him for a reason. And all the numbers you brought up, it's a bold my guy, but I love it, Greg. As you said, if you go hero RB, and you get a lot of stud receivers to go with your stud RB1, and you're looking for a RB2 who can catch passes and score at any given week, Kareem Hunt's a great pick.
Yeah, don't let his ADP. The reason I bring him up is because I don't want people to look at his ADP and think that there's something wrong with him that they're missing. There really isn't. It's really just a community that hasn't really caught up on or doesn't remember how dominant he was 2 years ago and how great he was the first kind of quarter of last season before he got hurt. Aaron, am I crazy? You could say yes.
I don't think you're crazy. I think you're just. So I don't hate Hunt. I think Hunt's got his place and he's valuable. I think he's priced pretty appropriately, maybe a little down. The main reason I say this all is because I absolutely love Nick Chubb. I think that his talent, and I think that the Browns offense is going to run through him. But to your point, we've seen that they're never going to give him the full workload, and they're definitely not getting the passing. So if it's full PPR, Hunt is a priority for me as a later, not even late, as one of those. Like if I get him as my RB2, I absolutely love that in a PPR league.
Yeah, I think there's a storyline with Chubb where, the Browns are looking ahead to a postseason run this year once they get Deshaun Watson, and they want to keep Chubb fresh for that. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see a really healthy kind of split between them on the ground in at least the first, 11 games, say, off the top of my head, before Watson comes back and they really start hitting it hard with Chubb. So we'll see. A lot of potential avenues for Kareem Hunt to surpass his ADP. Pick any one of them, and I think he hits. Sanch, you want to take it home with your final my guy here?
I don't have too much data to back this one up, man. This is more of a gut feeling, my guy. Tommy Donuts called in about the Broncos offense. And I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy. While the world's on Sutton, I'm one of the few on the Jeudy train. If you guys have the Sleeper app, you probably got the notification that Sutton's the one. It's not even close. Let me see it when the games start, man. Practice. We're talking about practice. Jerry Jeudy has all the tools to be one of the best wideouts in the league. If you argue with me, you're wrong. because he does. He's an elite route runner with elite footwork. He's super fast, and when he gets the ball in his hands, man, he goes into another gear that you don't see with a lot of these players. Not every young receiver comes into the NFL and turns into Chase or Jefferson. They're different. But, some guys need some time to develop. And the time for Judy's now, man. With Russell Wilson as the quarterback, I think he could be one of the best wideouts in the game. I can smell the breakout. I can feel it in my bones. While the world's on Sutton, I'm calling it's Jerry Jeudy season. And I'm willing to die on that hill, man.
I love this pick because today's episode is about planting your flag on your guys. And I haven't heard a lot of people planting the flag on Jeudy as opposed to Sutton. That being said, I think there's a world where they're both great this year. I think that Sutton could still be the more valuable wide receiver, and Jerry Jeudy's still doubling, tripling his expected output where he's being drafted right now. A lot of comparisons being drawn to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett last year on the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. Aaron, where are you at on this take, man?
I like it, and I don't kind of like what you were saying there. I love Jerry Jeudy. I love Cortland Sutton. I don't think if you say who do you prefer, whichever one is later, both. I don't know.
Yeah, with Tim Patrick out of the way, they're both going to eat.
Yeah, so I was just quickly going down in my brain here thinking, because every year, I think there's it's almost approximately 2 teams per year produce. No, maybe it's top 24, but we get one team per year that does 2 top 12 receivers. If I had to bet, I'd say the Bills have the best chance. I'd say the Broncos probably have the second best chance to have 2 top 12 receivers. So I think they are Sutton and Jeudy, their ADPs. Sutton should be a little lower. Jeudy could be a little higher. I like them both.
I wouldn't flip-flop them, but I would move them closer.
Right. Yep.
If I had that magic wand, I could wave and do that.
And going back to the Vegas odds, which I brought up with Gabe Davis, I believe last time I looked that Sutton, as far as what Vegas thinks, will have more yards, but Judy's got better odds for more touchdowns, man. They think he's going to score some TDs.
That is really interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting one out there.
Very telling. They're always paying attention to stuff we're not over there, and that's why they do what they do. Aaron, who's your final guy here?
My final guy, I'm going to I didn't mention him pre-show. I'm going to kind of pull the audible here.
Let's do it.
I mentioned Saquon. I love Saquon, but let's be honest. You have to have a certain spot in your draft order to get Saquon.
And a certain temperament to take him.
Yeah. I seriously, I think he could be a top 3. But I'm going to go deeper down the board here. I'm going to go with Chase Claypool.
Oh, I love it. And I thought you might mention him because I've read some of your stuff on him.
Yeah, I wrote him
season.
up. Yeah, the article was literally called "Let's not bury Chase Claypool just yet."
Yep, I read it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Chase Claypool was drafted with a bunch of other stud receivers. He was in that Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins class. Darnell Mooney, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, Gabe Davis. I mean, Jerry Jeudy. This class was stacked. Of them, he has the second most total touchdowns of the group behind Justin Jefferson. And most of those came in his rookie season. So, yeah, he had a down season last year. But if you look at it, the only real difference is touchdowns. He actually ran more routes last year. He had 3 fewer targets. His target share was higher. 3 fewer receptions, 13 fewer yards. It's almost the exact same season, except for the touchdowns. And again, we've talked about Roethlisberger being gone. So Trubisky or Pickett, I actually think Pickett takes over and is a good quarterback in this league. But either way, these guys are guys that will get mobile. They'll extend plays. They can throw the ball downfield, things that Roethlisberger wasn't going to do. Now we're getting all this reports of him being the big slot. So I don't know if he's going to have 150 targets, but his targets are going to be high-value targets. I can see the touchdowns being in double digits again. And I think he's one of my favorite guys in those later rounds to stash on my bench and see what happens. I think he could have another third-year breakout candidate.
I have had people who are interested in the Steelers' weapons this year come to me as a Bears fan and say, look, we haven't watched a lot of Mitch Trubisky. What do you make of him? Is he a good quarterback? Is he an upgrade over Ben Roethlisberger? And I'm like, listen, no, he's terrible. But he's mobile, and that's not something that you're going to see in the box score and based on his passing numbers. And the things that you have to watch the game to understand is that when he gets pressured, he's going to roll out and he's going to buy time for Claypool to get open down the field, and he's going to hit him on those passes sometimes. Ben Roethlisberger was catching the ball and releasing it almost immediately, which is why we saw such a hyper targeting of guys like Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris, the short to intermediate routes. That's not Claypool's game. He's going to get open downfield. He just needs an extra second or two to do it. And Trubisky's going to roll out of the pocket and make that happen. Sanch, what do you think, man? Claypool.
Beautiful thing about fantasy football is we can disagree with one another, man. I think I prefer George Pickens a round or two later personally, but I can definitely see the world where Claypool's the guy. The man himself said he's a top 3 receiver in the league. I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder to prove that. I'm personally not taking him, but I'm not shocked, Aaron, if Chase Claypool goes off. I think I like Pickens a little cheaper, but I'm not mad.
So this is super interesting. I just looked at Fantasy Pros ADP right now, their congregate. George Pickens has just moved one spot ahead of Claypool.
Wow. Okay.
I saw
Pickens is getting hyped, man.
Like right after Sanchi said that, the ADP flip-flopped. We have that kind of power here on Fantasy Fanline.
If that's the case, I like it more, man. If Claypool's being disrespected like that, hell yeah, I'm gonna take him late. I think all 3 of those guys have a chance to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at it at all.
Yeah, in a vacuum between those 2 receivers, if it's heads up, I'm Team Claypool just because we've seen him flash before at the NFL level. I love that pick, man. So I'm going to wrap it up here with kind of an equally controversial pick. And, feel free, anybody watching this who can see all the Bears paraphernalia behind me, to discard this as a homer take. But I promise you I stand behind it. My guy for 2022 is Justin Fields. Before you shut off the podcast and never listen to it again, I do want to clarify, I don't think he's going to come out and set the world on fire. I don't think that he is, despite his mobility, I don't think he's going to finish up with like the Jalen Hurts, the Russell Wilsons of this year. But I think that the path to success for him is the playbook followed by Jalen Hurts of last year. And I think he's got a chance to come in and make that happen. Jalen Hurts in his second season last year was the QB6 in points per game, despite ranking 21st in pass attempts, 23rd in passing touchdowns, and throwing mostly to Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. I don't think that those weapons are too far off from what Fields has at his disposal in his second year here. So far in their short careers, Darryl Mooney and Devonta Smith have a nearly identical catch percentage and yards per game. And I think Darnell Mooney people don't appreciate him as a physical talent, but he's got a 94th percentile 40-yard dash compared to Devonta Smith's 82nd. He's a beast, man, and he nearly doubled Smith's speed score. So, people overlooking Mooney, who I also considered as my guy, just because of the offense that he's in and kind of the lack of draft capital and name value, need to check again, because that guy is the perfect weapon for Justin Fields, who's not afraid to take deep shots. Even last year in Matt Nagy's dink and dunk kind of offensive scheme, he had the second highest air yards per attempt in the league at 10.1 last year, and he was effective in the red zone. I mean, he ranked 7th in red zone accuracy. Fields has the tools. I think that last year there was a lot of things that needed to come together in order for it to happen. One of those things being Matt Nagy not, necessarily being a great offensive coach or calling a great scheme for him, but they figured something out, because he finishes a top 12 fantasy quarterback in each of his last 5 starts last year, and he was a top 10 in the final 4. Despite playing in only 12 games, 10 full starts, he had the 5th most rushing yards as a quarterback in the league on the 7th most carries per game. So he's going to move, he's going to throw, he's effective when he does throw, he throws far when he throws. I don't see, he's going as the quarterback 18 right now. I feel good about him creeping certainly into the top 14. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see him sneak into that kind of back end quarterback 1, 10, 12 range. His ceiling, maybe top 8. Again, I don't think he's going to set the world on fire, but for where he's going right now in his league so late in the draft, because the narrative right now, for the Bears is that they didn't get him any help in the draft. He's in a bad offense, but all the reports out of training camp and preseason, and I know it's training camp and preseason, but he's looking good, man. The preseason finale, he looked like a guy who took the next step and can use his physical tools to elevate any offense, even the Bears offense. He went 4 of 16 for 156 and 3 against the Browns, and he rushed twice. So I don't know, guys. Am I insane? Again, I feel like I have to keep asking this between Kareem Hunt and Fields. Sanchi, where are you on Fields this year as a potential viable late dart throw at quarterback?
I know the talent's there, man. He's got the legs. As you mentioned, Darnell Mooney's a stud. He's being slept on a little bit. The
Yes,
Sharps
sir.
aren't sleeping on him. The Sharps know what they have in Darnell
Dude,
Mooney.
Mooney's going like wide receiver 31 right now in home league drafts, which is just offensive.
Pretty crazy. I know you love Cole Kmet as well. There's a world that the Bears win 4 games, but they still put up a bunch of fantasy points. Just that's what you get if you have a rushing quarterback, and if the O line needs to hold up for him. That's the biggest concern for me.
It does, but I'm also not really afraid of that because, again, he's a guy who's going to get away from pressure and make things happen with his legs. I mean, it's a lot less scary than if it was a Nick Foles behind the line and I would just be throwing out all of his receivers because he's going to get killed. But Fields, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I know it was preseason, but he looked really damn good in that final dress rehearsal he got. It's definitely worth a shot late, man. Those rushing quarterbacks, just like pass catching running backs, could be fantasy gold and definitely worth a gamble if he's free to you.
He is by far the latest rushing quarterback going in drafts right now with the most upside. I mean, Trey Lance is a top 10 guy right now, I think. Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, all top 10. Justin Fields, 18. Aaron, I don't know if you're allowed to say good things about the Bears on camera, but if you are, please share.
Oh, about some of the players, sure. Yeah, no, I do like Fields. He's one of my most highly drafted quarterbacks in best ball this year. The crazy thing about Fields is if he had a better offense or better surroundings, I think we'd be through the moon for him because you guys keep bringing it up, and I do too. These rushing quarterbacks. I think he's a good throwing quarterback. Coming out of college, he was rated as a really. I'm not a big college guy, but from my understanding, he was a great thrower of the ball in college, and he could also run the ball and is a freak athlete. And I don't know if we're going to get the chance to fully see that on this version of the Bears with the shaky O-line and the questionable weapons behind Mooney. I love Cole Kmet too as a late tight end. But
me too.
Yeah, I think Fields, and this could be one of those situations where we get everything wrong because we just say, "Oh, the Bears' offense sucks." Well, maybe they're okay because I think he has a higher ceiling in a vacuum than Trey Lance as a player because I think he's a better thrower of the football.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those players who can come in and, like I said before, lift an offense that needs somebody physically special. Like I love Mac Jones as a passer, but I don't think he's the guy who would come in and succeed in an offense like this. I think it has to be like a Justin Fields. And I really wanted to make the case based on last year's Jalen Hurts because I think that probably in a vacuum, Fields is a better passer than Jalen Hurts, but he doesn't have the weapons that Hurts has this year. Right. But I think he has the weapons that Hurts had last year, and Hurts succeeded. Hurts succeeded despite not a lot of passing action last season, not a lot of passing success. He did it all with his feet, and it would surprise me more if Fields didn't make that kind of a jump this season, to be honest.
I was going to say, in an alternate universe, if Fields was on like the Eagles or the Broncos, we'd be all over him. He'd be on everyone's list. He'd be hyped to the moon. It really comes down to how the Bears coaching is going to use him and how those weapons are going to do. And with Mooney and Cole Kmet, I think they're going to do pretty good.
Another Packers disciple there calling the offense.
Yeah. Josh is giving a shout out to Chris Olave as the rookie with the highest upside. And I actually thought about making him a my guy, but I figure Spencer the Guru has come on our show enough and talked up Chris Olave this year. You guys don't need any more points there. So that wraps up our my guys. You want to just go around real quick and list them all again, Sanchi?
First of all, Buckeyes are going to crush Notre Dame tonight. Going to crush them. Go Buckeyes. My guys are DeAndre Swift, Gabe Davis, and Jerry Jeudy. If you get all three, thank me when you win your championship.
Send a screenshot. Aaron, who do you got?
I have Juju Smith-Schuster, Robert Tonyan, and Chase Claypool. 3 guys you can easily all get on your roster.
And I went with Michael Pittman, Kareem Hunt, and Justin Fields because I'm a glutton for punishment. But those are the guys we're planting our flags on. We hope they help you out in your drafts this year. Aaron, this was fun, man. We're at about an hour. Why don't you take one more chance to plug everything you've got going on, let the people know where to find you on Twitter.
Yeah, this is actually perfect because just as this show was going, my newest article just published like 15 minutes ago on the Ballers website. So go there. It's the top of the list. It's called How to Win Your Fantasy Football League After the Draft. There's a lot of people love to stare at their rosters and feel really good about themselves. This came from the draft I did last weekend, I loved my roster. I started swiping through, and I'm like, oh, I like his roster too. That's another good roster. How is everybody drafting so good? I mean, platforms have gotten better. Default rankings have gotten better. People are getting sharper. So there's a lot of work to be done still. So that's what that's going to be about. But yeah, find me there. Find me on Twitter at AA Larson for everything else I do.
Love that. And certainly, if anyone listening to our show doesn't listen to the fantasy footballers who are Aaron's employers, you should certainly be doing so. I know I can speak for both Sanchi and I when I say they're one of our favorite shows out there.
Yeah.
Great dudes over there. Great platform. Excellent articles. We have some other writers, your coworkers, coming on later this season. And Aaron, you'll be back with us later in the year too. So
that's true.
Anybody who tuned in just to hear Aaron, make sure you subscribe and check fantasyfanline.com for a schedule of the rest of our guests. Sanchi, you were going to say something?
One more question, boys. Are you ready for some football?
Oh, dude, I'm so ready.
Thursday night.
Is this our last show before regular season?
It is.
I didn't realize. I should have made a bigger deal of that. It is football time, guys. Aaron, thanks again for coming on, man. And we will be live with another guest every Saturday this year, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the entire rest of the season. Subscribe and stream us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Find us the next day on your favorite podcast platform and audio format. We're on all social platforms at Fantasy Fanline. Visit our website, like I said, for a schedule and to submit a question to our mailbag so we could answer it on the show. Speaking of which, we did get one more late mailbag question that I wanted to save right towards the end because it is relevant to the end of the show. Dean in California, yo, what is your theme song called and who is it by? We have gotten this question offline a couple times. I think it's the first time online. That theme song is by me. I wrote it and I produced it for this show. So I guess the name of it is the Fantasy Fanline theme song because I never really thought about it before. But you're about to hear it again. Thank you, everybody. Tune in again next week. Goodbye.